The following program was paid for by the friends and partners of WLMB-TV 40 Toledo.
I was unemployed for 5 months. I remember after 30 days, Tammy came to me, my wife, and said, I've been waiting for this day. I go, what's that? She goes, it's the first time in our entire marriage you've been home 30 consecutive days.
Wow.
And I said, man, that's amazing. She said, yeah, when you leaving?
Well, I want to welcome you to another episode of Main Street, the fastest half hour in television. I'm Dr. Jamey Schmitz, and of course, I'm joined by my co-host for the past 22 years, Virginia Bossa.
Jamey, it is great to be here. We have a fantastic show today. I'm super excited about it. We are going to laugh. And, before we introduce today's guest, we have a video to tell you more about him. Let's take a look at this.
Well, I want to ask a question right off the bat. If you have a teenager at home, applaud. Let me get kind of a feeling. Okay. All right. Thank you. I ask that question just about every show I do, and that's pretty much all it ever gets in response. It's just a woo. Thanks for bringing that up. Now listen to this. If you had a teenager and they grew up and they moved out of your home, applaud. Always a lot more life behind that one. I got some bad news for you. They're coming back. I don't know what the government's calling this generation, but I'm calling it the boomerang generation. My youngest son left my house at 18, came back home at 19, actually said this to me. You don't know what it's like out there. It's awful. That phone bill, Dad, it kept coming every month.
Well, Jamey, as you can see, today's guest needs no introduction. All the way from Nashville, Tennessee, we want to give a warm welcome to comedian Jeff Allen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for dropping the charges and let me come back to your fine station.
Yeah.
We were talking, it's like been 15 years, I guess. So.
Well, Jeff, it's wonderful to have you. It is a real honor to have you here on Main Street. Would you update our viewers a little bit about yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself as in the life as a comedian.
Oh, well, obviously in the year of 2020, everything has kind of been changed and gutted. So I just kind of, I was unemployed for 5 months. I remember after 30 days, Tammy came to me, my wife, and said, I've been waiting for this day. I go, what's that? She goes, it's the first time in our entire marriage you've been home 30 consecutive days.
Wow.
And I said, man, that's amazing. She said, yeah, when you leaving?
I love it.
Just let her know. And it was interesting as we were a young couple, married couple. She finally told me after a few years, she goes, when you come home, you disrupt everything. I'd be on the road for 5 days, come home, and then I'd barrel through like a bull in a china shop and start telling people what to do. And she finally sat me down. She says, no, it's not going to work that way anymore. She goes, we have a way of doing things, and you're a visitor for 2 days. You live on the road. So anyway, it was an interesting adjustment as we got through our years. So, and then to tell me I was home for 30 days, I went, no, I've been home. She goes, no, you haven't.
Wow.
Well, we're glad you are back on the road. And you actually had the opportunity recently to see Jeff.
Yes, he is in the America I Grew Up in tour,
Yes.
and super funny and just a great show. If you get a chance to see it, you've got to get out there and see it. It's totally worth that ticket. I went there with some friends, and as we can see, there's Ben and I with Jeff, and then our friends Judy and Greg. So great show. Everybody was laughing. Thank you so much. This is so much needed in today's crazy times.
Yeah, it releases endorphins. Endorphins are the happy thing that God put in us, and we need it. I believe that more than I ever have. I remember when I first started in this, in the Christian world, people would come and go, really love your ministry. I go, it's not a ministry, I'm a stand-up comic.
Yeah. So, I believe that God has called, Christians to work in every field of human endeavor. Comedy, you are A joyful heart is good medicine, is what the Lord says in His good word, and we're so happy that you're out there on the road. And
one of the first books someone gave me when I became a believer was Bob Reiner's Roaring Lambs, and that's what his premise was, that you want better movies, then write better screenplays. If you want better editorials, write better editorials, you know, and get in there and change the culture.
Mm-hmm. So your tour is called The America I Grew Up In. Maybe share a little bit, you know, about why you chose that title, and you know, and what prompted this tour.
Well, it started with my grandchildren and the whole car seat thing. You know, I forgot my car seat and went to pick my grandson up to take him to the playground, and my daughter-in-law says, "Well, he can't go. It's a law." I said, "I don't care about it." I said, "I'll risk the ticket." He's 60 pounds. He's on creatine, I think. I don't know. He's a huge kid. And I just looked at my wife. I said, we had car seats, but she goes, "Yeah, but you refused to put them in the car, you know." And I did. I was a free-range kid. I walked the back seat of my mother's car. I mean, I understand it. I'm not against them. So please don't send me an email, you know. I mean, but I'm not against car seats. I'm just saying, it's nonsense. It really is. And anyway, I said, we didn't grow up like this. So that kind of the genesis of it. And then I started really kind of paying attention to like the playground, no monkey bars, no, you know, the slide is 6 feet high. We had 6-story high solid, you know, solid steel.
Right.
You know, it hit a temperature of 285 degrees in July, and we scraped knees, we drank out of the garden hose, we did all this stuff. And now it's just, it seems like it gets more and more constricted. And I was talking on stage one night. I said, my wife and I talked about this. If we raised our kids today the way we raised them 30 years ago, we would definitely lose custody. We know that.
Yeah, childhood should be filled with stitches.
That's it.
That's right.
That's how you learn.
I had stitches a few times.
Pain is the teaching tool. C.S. Lewis said, "Suffering was God's megaphone." Pain is what teaches us
That's right.
to not do the things we're doing, you know? And you hope you survive, you know. So that's kind of the genesis of it. It's just a tongue-in-cheek look at what we grew up with.
Well, what was like for you growing up?
Well, small town where everybody knew everybody's business, and I used to say that Rome wasn't built in a day, but Sauk Village, Illinois was. You know? Mm-hmm. It was the prefab homes in the 60s, and I was there for 18 years, and then moved to the big city, Chicago, to do comedy.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about the fact that the Lord works in every field of human endeavor. It's one of my favorite phrases. Makes me sound smart. But why did you choose to be a comedian? What led you into, you know, doing that for a professional living?
Well, when I was a 16-year-old, 15, 16, my brother was a musician, and he played in bars. And I went into a bar one night to watch him play, and they had a couple of comedians go up. And I want to learn how to do that. I mean, I had no idea how you did that. I mean, where do you start? And then I was in a jewelry company. I was 22 years old. I was working at a company for 3 years, and someone said, "There's this place called a comedy club." And I went, "Where's that?" And anyway, I went over there and I got hooked. I mean, that was it. And I got lucky. I started in 1978, and there was a handful of clubs in Chicago, but by 1980, the country had exploded. So I was able, you know, I was 23 years old or 24, and I was single, and I was able to travel around and be bad at something and get paid a few bucks. You know, I always want to go back to those old clubs and apologize to the people I worked for. You know, but it's a craft that takes a while to develop. And anyway, the times I tried to get out of it, I got led back into it. So when I became a believer at 40. Those were moments that Jesus gave me. That next day, when I woke up, I gave my life to Christ in the afternoon, and then I went, you know, went to bed, wake up in the morning, and I'm sitting on the end of my bed, and something's different, and I just felt different, and I remember thinking, "Oh yeah, I gave my life to Christ yesterday. I wonder if that's what this is." And there were moments. That morning, I remember it was like I was looking over I was standing on and there was this butte, a plateau, and Jesus told me, I was here, I was here, I was here, I was here. There were moments in my life that came back to me. Oh, wow. I mean, and some really profound moments where I could have lost my life. And I was there. I was always there, just waiting for you, you know. And so that kind of changed. I was changing my comedy probably 2 years before that. Again, in hindsight, you look and you go, the Lord's hand was there the whole time. I mean, somewhere in my mid-30s, we got called into school because my son swore at his teacher. He was in 4th grade. Let out a couple of foul words, and the teacher said, she couldn't even repeat them. And I said, you know, my wife and I'd love to look you in the eye and tell you we have no idea where that child heard that kind of language. But it came. But I remember driving home with my wife that day, and I said, this is not good. He's learning this from us. This is not good. So I started cleaning my language up at that moment. I just told my kids, I'll give you a quarter for every bad word you hear come out of my mouth. And first week I went broke, you know. And again, it's like any habit you want to change, you just become aware of it, and then eventually it just changes, you know. So that's, I've always loved what I do, but it got to be a chore until I found, you know, when Christ captured my heart, the joy in what I do came back. And I didn't really care where I did it. I just wanted to do it. You know, it's fun.
Yeah. What would you say some of the highs and lows are of being a comedian?
Well, the travel's obviously low. You know, I've been home. I was home for 4 or 5 months. I had never been unemployed since I was in 19 for that length of time. And I remember telling my wife I was leaving Sunday to go to to the job in Cincinnati, and I was going to go in a day early to play golf with a friend of mine. And this is going to choke me up, but I looked in my mirror, and my wife was on the porch crying that I was leaving. And it just broke my heart. I mean, it did. I ended up driving because I got to work, you know. So I'm driving, and about an hour out, I turned around and went home. Called my friend. I said, I'm not going to come in, man. I'm going to stay home. And as I was packing up to leave the next day, I told Tammy, I said, if I had the money, I'd retire. I really would. And as much as I love what I do, just we have a good life. You know, we like each other.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yes, and you know, and it's evident that you love the Lord and that you love your family, and we appreciate you sharing your story today. And actually, when we come back, we're going to share more about the ups and downs of marriage and the joys and laughter that it can bring when we come back.
It was funny, my first Gaither job, when I worked with Bill Gaither, I didn't know who he was. I had come out of the secular world, and I said to my wife when I got home, I said, I think I just had lunch with the Elton John of gospel music.
Now, back to Main Street.
My 60th birthday rolls around, and Tammy, my lovely wife, gets me 12 hours with a personal trainer. That's her gift to me. What would a woman say if a man walked up to her, hey, happy birthday, here's 12 hours with a personal trainer? Yeah, see, you already know. So 12 hours with Todd. So Todd, who does his job well, was loaded with questions. First question he asked me, how long has it been since I had an exercise program? I went, let me ponder that one, Toddo. I'm 60, so that would be, well, 60 years, 9 months. If I'm to be honest with you, Todd, I haven't really moved with any purpose since I won the race at conception, so. Don't want to brag, but I outran about 4 billion that day. It was a rough journey, if I remember it. A lot of us died along the way.
Jamey, so funny. Well, hey, you know what? We're all winners here, right?
That's right. That's right. Winner, winner, chicken
Yes,
dinner.
that's
Love
right.
it.
Well, awesome. All right. Well, we are here with Jeff Allen, and so we are just excited, tickled to have you here. You know, in that bit, you talked about how your wife got you the personal trainer. You know, and so often our culture bashes marriage. So how do you approach marriage in your routines?
I bash it. I approach marriage. I hope. It was funny, my first Gaither job, when I worked with Bill Gaither, I didn't know who he was. I had come out of the secular world, and I said to my wife when I got home, I said, I think I just had lunch with the Elton John of gospel music. You know? And she says, who is he? And I said, I don't know, but anyway, I heard he's a big deal. So we go to the first event, and after my show that night, Thursday, I've never worked, I mean, he said we have a little gathering in Indianapolis, and that little gathering was about 15,000 people. And I was blown away. I've never worked in front of that many people. I came out of clubs with, 80 people, 100 people, So anyway, I was just blown away. I get off the stage. The next day, they come over to me, and they say, boy, that show last night was really, really good. And I'm waiting, because you've heard that, but do you think you could mention you love your wife at some point? I go, they don't know that? He goes, well, you hit her pretty hard, And I go, and I thought I was being,
Comedic.
Yeah, exactly. So the next day, that morning, I do a show, and I'm leaving the stage, and I remember, I gotta go up and tell him I love Tammy. So I go back, and I start to talk about her, and it happened like in the last segment we did. All of a sudden, I get choked up, and I start crying, talking about how much I love my wife. And I walk off, and Tammy goes, what the heck was that? She goes, you look like Jimmy Swaggart up there. What's going on? Honestly, it was like I didn't know what overcame me. I really didn't. And that's kind of what started the genesis of the testimony. I just thought when I would do a church, I felt they were paying me out of their tithes and offerings. I should offer something. And the only thing I had was my story, of alcoholism, drug addiction, and then eventually.
Which you have a powerful story. Do you mind sharing some of that?
Well, it's it's all over the internet if people want to go see it. Matter of fact, it's my most popular video on Facebook is the testimony, which is interesting. It tells you who follows me. But I've gotten a number of emails. I just got one from a young guy. I got to answer him back, but he's 23 years old. He doesn't understand, doesn't get God, doesn't, but he's got to quit. He's going to die. Drinking, and but it's I started in Alcoholics Anonymous. They said pray. I said the what, and that kind of was the beginning of it, and I believe God's hand was in that the whole time, and I started with self-help, and then eventually led me to New Age and Buddhism, and I wanted to raise the kids Buddhist. I came home one day and told Tammy we're putting the kids in a monastery, and she said over my dead body, and that. I said, oh, okay. That's how long it took her to talk me out of it. I mean, my theory was this. I was an angry rage freak. I was really full of rage. And I have 2 sons. And my brother was full of rage. My father was full of rage. And I didn't want my children to be like me. And I was sensing some of that in their the way they acted out, some of their things. So I thought, well, when's the last time you read about a Buddhist monk with road rage? Never. I mean, again, there was some reasoning behind it. So anyway, she said over my dead body, and that was kind of the end of that. So.
Yeah. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes kind of played an important role in your coming to the Lord. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Well, I met a guy on the road that put Tommy Nelson's Denton Bible Church. He said, we have a pastor that teaches the Bible. And I hadn't read the Bible. I was still, searching, and I said, it doesn't cost me any money, send me what you want. That's why I always tell churches when they start doing budget cuts, don't cut the tape ministries, because believe it or not, they get sent out, and now with the media the way it is, you can, but anyway, he sent me Bible tapes. I collected them for well over a year, and our marriage eventually fell apart and imploded, and Tammy was leaving and taking the kids. And before she left, she gathered up all these tapes and said, you listen to these things, and I'm throwing them out. They were all over the house, manila envelopes. And the friend that discipled me, that led me, he never once asked me about the tapes.
He just sent them to you.
Right, but he'd always say, how you and Tammy doing? You and Tammy doing fine? Sent me a Bible. I never read that. Threw it in the junk drawer. So when she left, I opened up the first envelope, and 2 tapes fell out, and one of them was Ecclesiastes. I couldn't even pronounce it, inside. But I remembered I had a Bible, and I went and got that, and I put it in, and I was thumbing through trying to find the book of it, and it started out, it was NIV, so it was meaningless. And that, my heart, I mean it. I went, what, And the first chapter of Ecclesiastes, it just resonated with me. The eyes never get enough of seeing, the ears never get enough of hearing, And at that time, I had a video library of 800 videos, and how do you not look at American culture and think eyes never get enough of seeing, the ears never get enough of hearing?
Right.
We just never get enough, and eventually, all of that led to me where I started reading about Blaise Pascal, and Pascal talked about the God-shaped hole that's in every human being. And nothing of this earth will ever fill it. Solomon knew this 3,000 years ago. Nothing of this earth will ever fill that hole. God is the only thing that can fill that hole. And that led me to Job, which I remember first sermon I heard on Job, I was laughing. I thought, that poor soul.
It's dangerous to read Job.
I know, but it made me laugh at the time, and it's funny because I remember telling my friend, I said, Job, man, he goes, did you read the whole book? I go, no, I just heard the one sermon, where the fireballs burned his cattle up.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that the Lord chose to use the most uplifting books.
I know, I know.
And the entire Bible to start.
When I started sharing it at churches, church people would come over and pat my hand, you poor man. The book of Ecclesiastes led you to the Lord. And I go, yeah. They go, it's such a cynical book. I go, well, you didn't know me like he knew me, because I was a
He gives you what you need,
a bad, angry, bitter guy. And boy, I'll tell you what, to this day, we said this off air, but I believe this, that every incoming freshman should be forced to study the book of Ecclesiastes. And then every outgoing senior should do a refresher course before they hit the world.
Yeah, it'll be a lot better than what they're being forced to read these days.
That's right.
So
it's an honest book.
Yeah, you mentioned your children, couple boys.
Couple boys. 4 grandbabies.
4 grandbabies, wonderful.
3 girls and a boy. Never had any girls. I love little girls.
That's wonderful.
And we were taking one of them out to see Riverdance. That's her favorite. That was her favorite video. So she didn't know we were taking her. And while we're eating dinner, she just slides across the booth, throws her arms around me. She goes, "I love you, Papa."
Aww.
And I looked at Tammy and I said, "Never, not once, has my boys ever slid across the table and threw their arms around me, and told me they love me. They'll punch me, but they never, so."
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So you're a grandfather now, as you just mentioned. How do you work that into your show?
Well, first of all, with the COVID, the 2020 thing, oh my Lord! I said I was prepared for that by eating lunch at the preschool with the kids. I mean, there's not a germ known to man that isn't in those places. At the age of 4 and 5, they still lick doorknobs, for gosh sakes. They're God gave them this to build up their immune system. So they sneeze in your face. I mean, not lying. I'm laying on the couch, sleeping, and apparently my grandson was leaning over me, looking at me while I was sleeping, and because of gravity, everything in his mouth was splashing on my face. It was like laying under a toxic rain pipe of this Kool-Aid vanilla wafer paste that dripped from his lips. And as soon as apparently he's allergic to my eyes, because as soon as I opened it up, it went sneeze right in my face. And I go, "Oh, great, Caden, that's Ebola. I haven't had that one yet." So.
He's toughing you up.
That's right. He's building up Papa's immune system. So I wasn't afraid of the COVID.
Well, it's great to see, how you're able to use life experiences and find humor in it and bring so much joy and laughter to so many people. What is your hope for someone watching today's show?
Well, it depends on where they're at in their life. I hope they learn to laugh, and what I see lacking in the culture today more than anything. We used to have a basic understanding of the Christian foundation in America, and that was grace and forgiveness. And I see a lot of that lacking, and we need to get back to just, I made a crack one night on stage, and my audience understands it. We used to get over elections in one day, when I was, coming up.
Sure.
24 hours. Tony Campola told me that. If you can't get over an election in one day, you got psychological problems. So I mean, again, heck, you move on. And so I made a crack. I said that from the stage one night, and somebody gets in my face after the show, and they go, "Well, times are a little more." I go, "No, they're not. They haven't changed." We'll survive the next whatever, and but we won't survive as a divided nation. So I get back to the basics of the gospel. Mm-hmm. He died for us.
That's right.
So when you understand that, when you understand what was done for you and how forgiven you really are, then you can forgive others. And I remember what Jesus, I think it was Jesus, not Paul, I'm not a scholar, but said that be careful the way you judge another, because I'll use that same method, that same standard on you. So I'm very careful how I judge other people. And I know where I came from, and I know what was done for me. And it's humbling. It really is. And it's weird to say, it's humbling. I was at a Ravi Zacharias thing, and one of the speakers said he wrote a book on humility. And he put up these mock titles that the publisher put up. They were funny titles. Humility and How I Obtained It. That was one of my favorite lines in the Screw Tape letters, when the Screw Tape said the subject is becoming truly humble, and his humility is starting to take root. And Satan said to him, he said, make him proud of his humility.
C.S. Lewis, wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, we're run out of time, but what's the best way for people to, get a hold of you, to get your DVDs, tickets to your show, maybe invite you to do a show at a church or for a business presentation?
Oh, all the social media platforms,
yeah.
Instagram, J. Allen Comedy, Facebook, Jeff Allen. I'm not on Twitter much, but my website, jeffallencomedy.com. I almost forgot that. Yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you for visiting us on Main Street today.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, thank you for joining us on Main Street this week. I hope that you will check out jeffallencomedy.com. He is awesome. You're going to love his show, so go get those tickets today.
We hope that Main Street has been a blessing to you today. Please feel free to contact the following to learn more about the topics discussed on today's show. WLMB would like to thank all the faithful supporters of WLMB that make this program possible. Main Street is a production of WLMB-TV 40 in Toledo. All rights reserved.